everybody, and welcome to episode 159 of the IROCKNITTERS podcast. And this is Chatting with Friends. And this is my friend, Lisa Ross of Paper Daisy Creations. And I'm so thankful that she's here today. Lisa has a special place in my heart because she is one of the people that helped kind of welcome me into the design world and had been working in it a little bit before me. And we have gone back and forth sharing ideas and design concepts and questions. And she's an open book to me as far as like helping. She's just always been willing to help. So I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like it's been helping each other along the way. Like there are so many things like when it comes to teaching. And I just remember, us sitting down and me like asking you everything about the teaching world of knitting and then responding with all the Instagram world of knitting, like our back and forth.
Exactly. Yeah. So Lisa was wanting to know more about the teaching part, and I had done more of the teaching and less of the kind of the marketing and the design part piece was there, but the marketing and some of the pattern stuff early on. Like I know we talked tech editors. I know we talked like style sheets. Like when you first start and you don't know like some of that stuff, like that you need a style sheet, which for those people that don't know is like how you're going to write your pattern and how you're going to present your work to the public. So you have like all these rules that you follow that you make up yourself around vocabulary and capitalization and abbreviations and what order you're going to lay your pattern out in, and you give that to your tech editor. Well, if you don't have that kind of pre-planned, you can kind of go by the seat of your pants for a while and kind of and develop it over time, because I do think that your patterns have developed and changed over time from your first ones. Like it's just like with my podcast, if you go back and watch episode 1, like I've gotten you just learn, but those kinds of things are things I didn't know.
Yeah,
for sure. So when did you start designing? Let's talk about that. And then let's talk about when we met. So yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So my story of starting designing kind of has to start with my story of how I learned to knit.
Yeah.
So I was pregnant with my fourth son 10 years ago and got a learn to knit kit for Christmas. And I had always crocheted since I was little. My mom was a crocheter. She had taught me that. So I'd always done that. But knitting just kind of blew my mind. How can you take 2 sticks with no hook on the end and come out with some stitches? And so I sat down to learn it, but I learned it at this crazy obsessive rate. I was just tearing through one stitch pattern after another. I couldn't learn fast enough. I was watching all the different YouTube videos, checking out all the books from the library. I mean, literally by day 3, I had designed a pair of cabled mitts. Like I have it right here, actually. I was showing
You
it
do? Oh my gosh.
class, which it's pretty simple. If you can see it.
Yep.
But this was day 3. It was just a rectangle with ribbing, cables, and then I seamed it, learned how to do mattress stitch thanks to YouTube. That has never been written up as an actual pattern. That was just for fun. But I just approached knitting so differently than I had crochet. Crochet, I was, given a pattern, I had to follow the pattern, I had to do exactly what it said. With knitting, I approach it as I can do what I want. I want to do this. I'm going to change this. And so it really sort of changed my world, my whole way of thinking to approach this fiber art differently. And so about a month in, I met Stephanie Latvin of Tully Bean
Yep.
Knits, a good mutual friend of both of ours now.
Yes.
And she designed, I think, like 3 patterns at the time. I asked her what she did. She said, "Oh, I design knitting patterns. I work with yarn companies and they send me beautiful yarn and I create designs with it." And I was like, "Well, tell me everything you know." So
Yep.
we met the next day at the library, and she had a little girl, toddler girl at the time, and I had a toddler boy at the time. My older 2 were in school and I was pregnant with number 4. And then she told me what she knew, and I just thought, okay, that's what I want to be doing. That is the dream job I never knew I wanted. And I'm going to spend every day of my life working towards that end. And I did. A few months later, I published my first pattern, which was a little boy's sweater vest, the
Yep.
Band of Brothers sweater vest.
Yep.
Luckily, I had a boy in every size, pretty much. So I was so nervous about, getting the sizing right. So it was great to knit 4 versions. And then I kind of went from there with the knitting. Eventually, my choices changed away from the children's wear and more into like the wearable art of shawls and socks. That's sort of
Yeah.
been my
Yeah, I
focus.
remember those first patterns though, because isn't that kind of where Stephanie dipped her toes into, was with a kid's
Yeah.
pattern first?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I had this idea, like just out of the blue, Stephanie, we should do a year-long mystery knit along where it's all children's designs and I'll design the boy stuff and you design the girl stuff. And each season you'll get a new uh, pair of patterns. Plus we did some accessories and so we did that for 2 years and that was really fun. And we learned so much from each other and so much along the way. So it's been amazing. After that, we sort of went our own design ways. We had
Yeah.
learned what we liked, what we didn't, and she went her way and I didn't, and
Yeah.
I went mine, but she's still one of my number one people for anything in the knitting world. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you guys have really developed your own sense of brand, I would say.
Mhm.
Like you really
Mhm.
have narrowed in on your brand.
Yeah.
Stephanie works a lot with color. Her photography is really creative and fun. And she has and I plan to have her on the podcast, but she has the different areas of the year where she has certain things come out. And you have done that too, right? Where there are certain things. So why don't you talk a little bit about those collections that you have that come out at certain times of the year?
Sure. So my biggest things for those are the socks and the mystery knits. So I used to do 2 sock collections a year, one in April and one in October. But each of those has been a 4 pattern collection. You can see one on the on the wall behind me. That was my Socks of the Secret Garden collection. And so each collection would have 2 patterns that are toe up, 2 are top down. I run a knit along where you can modify things to some extent, but change in your favorite toes, heels. I really want people to have good fitting socks that they love and will wear for many years. And now I do just 1 collection a year. So it's happening right now for Socktober. I've got the Socks of Skywalker collection inspired by Star Wars. And then in April, I've started doing what I call the single sock spectacular. So with my knit-alongs, I like to make them multi-level because everyone has different time constraints and everybody has different yarn constraints. And so knitting just one single sock has always been, you get entered in for prizes. And so in the spring, you can knit any of my previous designs. I have over 70 sock patterns out there now, and you can knit
No,
any
you do.
sock and qualify for prizes. And lots of dyers and makers donate prizes for that. So that's a lot of fun. And so this month for October and through the end of November, we're all knitting Socks of Skywalker. But if you only knit one of a pair, you can always finish it up in the spring for part of that sock knit along. And then the other big thing that I've been doing is they're my mystery knit alongs.
Yep.
So I always do a large mystery wrap. This was my 5th year doing it, and this is the final design. I'll talk more about that later when we do
Yep.
favorites, because
Yeah.
that's one of my favorites.
Yeah. But
But
your sock and your shawl mystery, they're really heavily themed, right? Like especially the socks. You have done, a thematic display of those 4 socks. Can you just tell us a couple of the themes that you've done? So just in case people aren't familiar.
yeah. So I've done Socks of Wonka, Socks of Oz, Socks of the Secret Garden, Socks of the Princess Bride. All of them are sort of, the fan fiction
Yeah.
or television
Yeah.
shows or movies that have inspired me. They're all very like nothing is going to encroach on trademarks or whatever. You're not knitting like color work of Darth Vader's face, nothing like that. It's all like, this is how I was inspired by,
Yeah.
Skywalker or whatever it
Yeah.
may be. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really fun because you do texture and lace in the sock patterns quite a bit. Both, you kind of have a couple of each usually. So people would have their choice, but then you also heavily discount that kit when that, what do you call it, collection when it comes out, so that
Yeah.
so it's highly affordable.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I know that different designers take different approaches when it comes to price inclusivity. And for me, that's really important to me. So you'll get really good prices with my introductory discounts for any of my designs, but especially with my sock collections. I put together these 4 pattern collections, and the ebook would normally be $20. But for the month of October, you get it for $6. So it's really getting all 4 patterns for the price of one. On top of that, I always do one of the patterns free for a day, just to be sure that everybody can take part of the knit along, no matter what your financial situation might be.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go backwards and talk a little bit about how we first met. So
Yeah.
I think, and you'll have to correct me, but I think there are a couple of places that we have early on, because I started 9 years ago, kind of jumping in, but I only jumped in really at first with Megan to do the book. So we really spent those first 2 years writing those 16 patterns. So I wasn't doing a lot on my own. I had a couple of designs that I put out on my own, but I think we ran into each other at Stitches in Chicago and then at ZK for sure,
Yeah.
right? Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I think so. Like maybe the Leading Men Fiber Arts booth at Stitches. I think
Yeah.
so. And then,
Yeah.
ZK as well.
So, and then that was something that we attended multiple years in a row. So then we would get together and we would chat and we would do the designer showcase at ZK where you were showing off your stuff. So we would be in a room together quite a bit. So there was just this opportunity to be like, gosh, I love this. And how are you doing this? And how are you marketing? And then you guys would say, gosh, you're just teaching all the time. And I'd say, that's because I'm making no money on my designs yet. And so I have to supplement, but I was a teacher by trade, right? Like that's what I was, but so was Stephanie. Stephanie had started out as a teacher with little kids. So that's a little different.
Actually, that's what I used to do as well.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was a kindergarten teacher and a first grade teacher.
How many years did you do that for?
5.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was that before your kids were born or when they were little?
Both. So my husband was getting his doctorate at West Virginia University, and I was teaching first grade there. My first 2 boys were born in West Virginia, and I went back to work after both of them. But when Adrian was just 3 months old, I went back for a few weeks of school, but then we moved. And then I started staying home with the boys. And then I actually, after I had my 3rd son, when I was pregnant with him, the nursery school where the boys went, they had asked me to start up a kindergarten program there. And so I actually did that for a year. And then I was pregnant with my 4th and decided to stay home beyond that. So,
oh, that's kind of nice though, because the kids, they probably got to go to the preschool when you were at the kindergarten, right? If they were at the right age. Yeah, that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't remember that. I probably knew it, but I didn't remember that.
Yeah, I may not have talked about it. I mean, it's so different from what I do now that even teaching. So the biggest thing that I feel like has carried over is clarity and expression. Like that's very important with first graders and kindergartners. And then the other thing is making everything multi-level. Like that was always so important to me as a teacher, and it's so important to me like as a knitter and within like my knit-alongs. I'm thinking a lot about the process and how I can make it so that it's approachable for everybody.
Yeah. So tell people where Paper Daisy came from.
So that's interesting. I have, like many of you, I'm sure, dabbled in more than one craft over the years. And for a long time, I was into paper crafting, creating little handmade greeting cards and banners and different things like that. And I was going to sell some stuff at a craft fair and needed a name. And I have always loved daisies for my wedding. Daisies were the only flower that I had at my wedding. And so I chose the name Paper Daisy because of the paper crafting. But I also recognized that I like a lot of crafts and I didn't want the name to limit me to only paper. So I threw in the creations. And then my logo, the little Paper Daisy Creations logo, I don't think I have it around me anywhere, but
I'll put it in. I'll go take it off your website. I can stick it in.
Thank you. Yeah. So my sister designed that for me, and I just loved it. So it looks like a daisy, but it says Paper Daisy Creations. And then it wasn't until a few years after that that I ever started knitting. And when I needed to like create a name for Ravelry and create a business, I was like, that's who I am. I'm Paper Daisy Creations. And that name I felt was encompassing enough. Some people criticize me that it doesn't say knitting anywhere, but it's my thing.
Oh, well, people criticize everything.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about some of your favorite designs and knits of all time.
Yes. Okay, so it's like picking a favorite child.
I
like,
know.
You know?
It's really hard. It doesn't even have to
Yeah.
be your favorite, just things that you can show people that they may or may not have ever seen before.
Sure. Yes. Well, okay. So starting, I mentioned briefly about my mystery wraps, and so I'm going to talk about those. So my very first mystery wrap, this is one of my all-time favorite designs. I think it's my best selling of all of my designs. This is called Garden Variety.
Yep.
And it was designed in 2020. Miss Babs had asked me if I would design a mystery knit. And so it came out in like August, September of 2020. And the idea with this is that there are 7 different mini skeins and then 2 full skeins. So the Miss Babs minis are on the heftier side. They're each 133 yards. But it uses 7 colors plus 2 full skeins, so a total of 8 colors. And then I want to incorporate a lot of surprises. So unique construction has always been a staple of my mystery wraps. And then obviously a lot of different color play. And so when I did this first mystery knit, so many people went crazy buying kits that I was like, well, I guess we're going to use the same kits next year. And so I actually just finished year 5. So there are 5 mystery wraps, all that use the same kits. So they all use those 7 minis, but they're all totally different in construction and stitch patterns and surprises, all kinds of things. And so I picked Garden Variety as one of my favorites. And then this one is the Wings of Wonder, inspired by birds this year. And it is the first one that is fully symmetrical, which is really exciting because asymmetry has featured so prominently in my other 4 mystery wraps, if you take a look at those. But Wings of Wonder is symmetrical and you get these really beautiful wings. You have a couple different options for how you knit those, and then I'll turn it around and show you the back. So there's the back of that. So you start by knitting the wings and then they're joined together. And I create tutorial videos for anything that's challenging within the design, but a lot of different stitch patterns, textures, and color play. And I have a second version of that. So this is another sample that I knit of the Wings of Wonder. And I've been abbreviating it as WOW, the WOW wrap. So you can really
So
see
you
how,
start with the outer edges and work toward the middle?
yeah, yeah. So you, clue one is the first part of this wing right here. And then clue two, you finish up that wing and do, I call this the bird seed. I don't know if you can see it, but it's
Yep.
all mosaic. Clues three and four was the inverse so that you're knitting the other wing. And then clue five, you join it all together with these big triangles and finish it up all the way up here.
And the clues come out weekly?
Yep, yes. And tomorrow is the last day of that mystery knit, so I can finally reveal it, which is so exciting. So I get to share it with you on your podcast, and you might
Yeah.
actually be revealing it before I do because I'll
Well,
wait until.
I don't think it'll probably go up until midnight tonight. We'll see how much
Yeah,
I get.
that's
It might not go
fine.
until tomorrow because
Yeah,
like
and
I
I don't
said,
reveal it, and I won't reveal it until next week because I wait until until I can call what do you call it? Pull all the prize winners. So
yeah,
that's a whole big
yeah,
thing. I give people a few days and then, but yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, so you may be sharing that sooner, which is totally fine with me.
So let's talk about how mini skeins came to be your kind of your trademark or your
Yeah.
brand. Was that first Mystery Knit Along the first time you had done minis for a design with Miss Babs?
No, I've been using minis for a while. That was actually, I think, one of the reasons they reached out to me is they
Yeah.
said,
Okay.
people love your mini skein designs. Do you want to do a mystery wrap? And like, this is sort of what the kits that we were thinking. So everybody is doing the what sparks joy in your house and like cleaning their houses. Well, I didn't clean my house, but I did think about with knitting what sparks joy. And for me, it's color. And you'll see that in all of my designs. And so when I was going to Stitches or ZK or whatever, I was just gravitating toward the mini skeins because these amazing dyers would put together the most beautiful collections. And so I'd buy all these mini skein sets and the dyer would say, oh, what are you going to make with it? And I'm like, oh, not sure yet. And they're like, no, seriously, like, what are you going to make with it? Because people want to know what to make with it. And I thought, well, I could tell them. That sounds like a challenge. And so I sort of made it my mission to show people what they can do with mini skeins. And if you are part of the mini skein world, as I feel like most knitters have at least dabbled with it, you know that not all minis are created equal. There are many different sizes. They range from, 5-gram minis to 50-gram minis. I think that's as small as they go with still being called or as large as they go while still being called a mini. But I have all different designs now with lots and lots of minis.
Yeah. So when you first started out designing, I assume you just chose one yarn company to kind of use your minis like early on. You probably weren't going to several, but now you have tens of companies. I don't know how many, but tens of companies who get your design up front and have mini skein kits available, right? That
Yeah,
I
for the
assume that
mystery
was a
knits, I
transition.
definitely I definitely do that with the mystery knits because there are so many people that participate and they're all over the world. So I really need to have some options that are in Europe and the UK and Canada because not everyone can afford the American international shipping costs. Um, Rightfully so. And I'm happy to
Yeah.
give them plenty of options. And then for the other designs, sometimes I'll work on something and think, oh, this would work really well with, so and so's yarn. And so I have created relationships with the dyers where I will reach out to multiple dyers for the same design to give people options. One thing with Miss Babs, I really can't speak highly enough of working with them. They're an amazing company run by women. And when they asked me to do a mystery knit, they told me, we want you to reach out to other dyers. We want you to get as many dyers as you can to participate because when all of those dyers are participating, everyone's talking about it. It makes the design more popular. It sells me more patterns. And it also ends up selling Miss Babs more yarn because that design becomes a much more popular design. So everybody wins. And that's been an amazing viewpoint. I've shared that viewpoint with other dyers who were like, wait, Miss Babs is okay with this. And since then, it's sort of transformed the way that they've looked at selling their yarns. And I just love this, this idea of like a rising tide lifts all boats. We can all, lift
Yep.
each other up, support each other, and everybody wins.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, when you do the mystery knit along, do they have the 1 month to complete it, or is it more like 5 weeks or six? Like,
So it's typically broken into 6 clues. So the way that it typically works is the pre-orders start in August. And that gives you about 3 to 4 weeks to get your yarn before the first clue will come out. You do not have to purchase a kit. I give you an extensive getting ready guide on how to shop your stash, how to put things together. And then with my getting ready thread on Ravelry, every single person who posts in there, I will help with colors if they want it. So I respond to every person that posts in there if they would like color help. If they are shopping from stash because they want you to be really successful, and you don't know what's coming, so I'm happy to help with that. And then the clues come out beginning usually the first week of September. It's every the next 6 weeks are 6 clues. And then I give an additional week or two after the final clue for the, mystery knit to wrap up. I also do, like I said, I like everything to be multi-level. And so even if you don't have the wrap finished, you can post on Instagram with certain hashtags, all in the rules and everything.
yep.
And that can qualify you for prizes as well. So you don't even have to have it finished. You can show your WIP, your work in progress, and still qualify for prizes.
Yeah, cool. Okay, show us another design or our favorite knit.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with the one I have on because this is like, you'll see me wearing it a lot. It's one of my most wearable shawls. It was one of my favorites to knit, one of my favorites to design, and is definitely still one of my favorites, period. I teach a class that's heavily centered around this shawl. This design is called Coming Together. I designed this one with Emma's yarn, and it uses 6 50-gram minis. And the idea with this one is that it plays with the contrast within the color palette. And so you have 6 colors, and if you use your grayscale function on your phone to look at it in black and white, you want 2 that are dark, 2 that are medium gray, and then 2 that are light. And I say gray only because you're looking at it in grayscale. But you can tell none of these are gray. And then it's all just different ways of playing with those colors. So all different stitch patterns, none of which are hard. They're all, like a lot of them, it's just slipping stitches or creating longer stitches and slipping it. And this became the basis of my Clever with Color class that I teach. I did knit the second version, which this is designed to use similar stitch patterns, but be a much easier design. So even though all the stitch patterns in this are easy, the shaping is very complex. And so if you're looking for something that's a lot more approachable, if you're a beginning knitter, I would recommend this one. This one used 6 minis of the 133 yards. So
Yep.
this one is Sun Valley fibers. And so it uses those same constraints, but it's a much easier shaping and still lets you play with all of those stitch patterns. So,
and does the other shape, is it called something different?
So that one is called Simply Chic.
Okay.
Yeah, so this one's Coming Together and that one is Simply Chic.
So pretty.
Yep.
Very pretty.
All about socks.
Yeah, I was going to say, show us the sock.
Yeah. Okay, so
these are some of my
one of my favorite pairs of socks.
Yep.
This one combined self-striping yarns with a solid. The yarn, the self-striping yarn that I used is Mustache Yarns. This design is called Everlasting. It was inspired by the Everlasting Gobstoppers, all those little circles. And then I always like to do this on my colorwork socks is put something fun at the heel. So this is the Everlasting sock pattern, part of the Socks of Wonka collection.
And is that one toe up or top down?
This is top down.
Okay. Do you have a preference? Do you like one better than the other?
Good question. So I made it my mission when I started designing socks not to design too many more of one than the other. But if I'm knitting just for myself for fun, I tend to do top down. That being my preference. I've heard that
a lot of times I've talked about it. I think it's just because that's often what people learn first.
Yeah.
When you learn to knit a sock, you usually learn top down, and then you find out later or sometime in the process that a toe up can, there's some better parameters around, yardage and length or whatever. And so then or even just construction. But I always kind of that it falls back on, if I'm just going to cast one on, I'm going to do it top down,
Yeah. Yeah, and I was going to say the same thing. That's what happens. Like I've heard that it's whichever one you learn first. Though I do have this other sock to show you. This is another favorite, and this one is toe up. So within my sock collections, I do 2 toe up and 2 top down. And I make sure to include that with every pattern. And then within the knit along, if you want to switch it up, you can. I'm just not going to write the pattern both ways. This one worked well for a toe up because I could have that lace starting right at the toe and create the shaping within it. And I just love the way that turned out. So this one is called Come Alive, and it's up there. It's part of my Socks of the Secret Garden collection.
Aren't those kind of leaf shaped, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Leaves.
Yeah. There we go.
Those sort of grow up the.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. And what yarn is that? That green. It's a pretty green.
This one is Miss Babs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've been there.
Yeah.
If you couldn't have remembered, I could have edited it out.
In my Socks of Green Gables collection, I have another one that features leafy lace, and it's a very similar green, but it's from the Fiber Studio at Yarns to Die For. So I had to just make sure I was telling you the right one. Yes.
For sure. For sure.
Yes. So those are the 2 socks I picked to feature today.
Now you have done a couple of sweaters or other options, but your brand is really shawls and socks, right? Yep. That's just and you've set yourself up for a year of scheduling on what you're going to do for different times of the year so that you can just be planning ahead and kind of have, what the next season's going to bring. So you're always working. How far ahead of the game do you work?
Pretty far. Yeah, I usually at least 6 months. So if people want something soon, that's a tough one.
Yeah, no, I can't. Sometimes I usually say, like this weekend at Rhinebeck, I had a couple people ask, I'd love to have you design something with my yarn. And I just am saying I took on too much this summer. I said yes to 4 yarn companies and everybody wanted stuff for the fall. And, and I'm looking at my summer and I'm like, I have 4 months. That's what I usually ask. And I couldn't get it done. Like it was just, I have to be in one and not in several at the same time. I can knit in several, but I can't write patterns at multiple patterns being written at the same time, because then I get questions from testers and I answer and they're like, I'm not knitting a hat. I'm like, oh, sorry, wrong pattern.
Right? Oh, no.
Because that's what I was working on that day. So I see the email and I'm like, tell me more about the problem you're having on the sock. And they're like, I'm not knitting whatever, I can't. Yeah.
So
You
mine's
have
a
to,
bit different than that because I would say that I usually have something happening at every point in the process. So like this morning, I was like just coming up with new designs, putting together color palettes and figuring out a design that I'm going to create and teach a class on in January at Four Pearls in Winter Haven, Florida. And then I have like a pattern right now that's with the tech editor. I have another pattern I need to put up for testing today. I've got the compiled mystery knit, this pattern, that is going to be released as the full pattern. So that's in the works. And then I've got like another pattern waiting to be written. So I've got like something of everything
yes. I
kind of
just can't have
always.
two being written in the same days, right?
Yeah.
I have two at my tech editor right now. I have two going out for test knitting. Yeah. And I just published two, but when I'm writing, I'm going to spend a day or two really getting it written and then editing and getting it to tech. I can't mix and match. Like I can't go back and forth in that process. It screws up my brain, but I often do it, even though it screws up because, you know, then I get it back from the tech editor and I'm like, oh, I have to make some changes to this one. Well, my brain is solely over here on this cowl, but now I have to go. And that's what I have to do this afternoon is go work on, she just finished a hat edit for me. And, I have testers waiting, but I was in Rhinebeck. And it was glorious. We missed seeing, but
Yeah.
it was so warm. It's very warm, but the trees were peak and yeah, and it was packed. We did that. So we didn't land until about 8 o'clock last night. But what
It's
is
a
the
dream
next
job.
thing that you have coming up as far as design coming out or teaching?
Yeah, so a lot of exciting stuff. I have a new scarf design that I have to message the dyer still. She's been in Rhinebeck, so I didn't want to bother her, but I think it will come out in November. It's a gradient scarf. It's really cool. But I can't show you that because I haven't shown the dyer yet. And then I have a brand new mystery knit. I have not announced it yet. So again, your podcasters are going to hear about this first.
Wow.
But I have mystery socks coming for Christmas. So I'm
Oh,
super
wow.
excited. It's going to be all color work. Actually, very like if you've knit the Everlasting socks or my World's End sock pattern, um, the colorwork socks will sort of follow that same sort of contrast cuff, heel, toe, and a lot of color work. So there will be details coming out about that.
Will that launch in December for Christmas or November for Christmas?
So it'll be where the pre-order comes out in November so that you can get your yarn and get ready. And then the clues will be released the first 12 days of December. So
Oh,
able
wow.
to knit, you can choose to either knit one sock in those 12 days or you can knit the pair in those 12 days. So that either way, if it takes you 12 days to knit a sock, you'll have a pair by Christmas. So
Good for you. Oh,
yeah.
that's exciting. That's
Yes,
really fun. Have you done a
yeah.
Christmas design before? Like,
No, I
no. Yeah.
haven't. But I
Yeah.
had this idea last year where I just was seeing all this Christmas color work, and I just thought, like, I want to design Christmas color work socks. Like, nobody can stop me. And so I made it happen this year. So I'm so excited about that. And
Can
then
you share the dyer?
Lolo did it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't
So
want
she
to, there's some stuff you kind of want to save.
Yes,
But
yeah. Yes. So Lolo did it, who is another amazing
yes.
female-run business. And she's one of my favorite dyers to work with. She's so excited. I have messaged her about that, so we're good. And there will be other dyers as well. I just have not reached out to them yet. So if any dyers are listening, you can email me and I will send you
Oh,
all the
yeah.
details.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then January, I'm going to be teaching at Four Pearls in Winter Haven, Florida. So if you don't know, that's the Emma's Yarn crew. They own the local yarn store there. So I'll be teaching there again. That'll be my second time teaching there. And then the next like big thing is I'm teaching on a cruise to the Bahamas in July. So the information is just coming out for that. I haven't even announced that in my newsletter, though I know the cruise, the person in charge has started advertising in my Ravelry group because I'm like, oh, that's the cruise I'm going to be teaching on. So
Are you the headliner or are there other people going?
yeah, so Stephanie Lotman and I are both going, and there is one other person, and I think she might be a yarn dyer who is going.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
was
how
someone I
cool.
hadn't met yet. So yeah.
That's fun. Have you cruised before?
Just for fun, not for
Yeah.
teaching.
No, we haven't
So
gone on a cruise, my husband and I. So that's exciting. How fun.
yeah, we went on our first one last year. There was talk of me possibly teaching on a cruise, and I thought like I should probably go for like research purposes, right?
Yes,
Make sure it's something
absolutely.
I can handle. And so we took our boys and cruised around Mexico. So yeah.
I okay, let's just talk about that for a minute. I full props to Lisa. She has four boys, all at different ages of activity. Like you're busy when kids are little. You're busy, you're tired mama. You're busy when your kids are in elementary school. But when they get to middle school and high school and you start having to run to all the activities that are going in all the different directions, that's the part that I just found. And I only had one child, but she would have multiple things going
Yeah.
on each night. And I would say my day starts at 3 o'clock, right? Like, because from 3 until 10, you're just scrambling to get their dinner or where they need to go. So the fact that you continue to design and put out the amazingly beautiful projects that you do is just, I feel this way about you. It's just shocking to me.
Thank you.
I understand that you have kids that are also kind of capable of taking care of some of their needs, but that's still a lot because you still want to be involved, right? So tell us not the names, the ages of your boys.
Yeah, so I'll tell you their grades. So I have a senior in high school, a junior in high school, a seventh grader, and a fifth grader. So we have one is still in elementary school, one in middle school, and then two high schoolers.
Right. Which means
All
they have
boys.
different
Yeah.
schedules for school and times to get up and get home.
Yeah, it's a lot. I do have an incredibly supportive husband, which is amazing. And I know that you're a night owl like I am. When COVID happened, all of a sudden everybody was in my office, which is my house, and everyone was like around me all the time. And so I started staying up later and later just to have quiet, to have time to work. And so, and it worked out fine because it didn't matter if I got up late.
Right. Yep.
And when the kids went back to school, I said, okay, this is actually working for me. So if you can do the morning stuff, I can do the late night stuff,
Yep.
and then I can keep going. And so that's what we did. So I'm fully I
Yep.
told the kids I work third shift.
Yeah.
That's almost what I'm doing, staying up to get stuff done. And I do
Yep.
again.
And that's exactly what I did during COVID too, right? All of a sudden, my night owl tendencies were okay because I could stay up late and sleep in because the world wasn't starting in the morning. I didn't have to be up. Kylie was out of the house, right? And so she wasn't here and I could just stay up later. My husband's an early morning runner, so he could do the dog in the morning and let the dog out. And I just figured out a better productive schedule for myself later in the evening. It just worked out better. I could knit longer and more than I just felt disjointed during the day. Like there were just more interruptions. Like today when I had people coming to the front door and then there was a lady at my back door and I didn't even know who she was, like behind the garage, and she had all this equipment and I like, and I went to let the dog out, scared her. I'm like, well, he's friendly, but he's puppy, right? And then she had to explain to me what they're putting new lines in our neighborhood. And, but she was in my backyard and she had a neon suit on, but just those interruptions of dinner, laundry, all that, there just wasn't good time slots for longer periods of time to get. And Ross was home. So he was coming down more often, coming down for lunch or, whatever. And so, it just seemed like those night hours fit better for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do your boys prefer staying up? Like, do they lean? I mean, I know they can't because it's school, right?
Yeah, I mean, in the summer they may stay up late. My oldest is just like he's more of an adult than my husband and I are. Like he is like it's 9:30, I'm going to bed. I have a race in the morning, or I've got early morning practice. His schedule is all so rigid and so booked, and he is like, no, I've calculated every minute of sleep that I need. So he's usually the first one in bed. My husband's probably second. The younger two, I kind of have to remind them to go to bed. And that my second oldest, I don't know when he goes to bed because he locks himself in that room whenever he's home. I know he does work. Now he has a job. He works at Noodles and Company. And so a lot of times he doesn't get in until after 11, sometimes even on school nights. So sometimes it's later, but I know sometimes like he goes to bed way earlier because he needs a day to catch up on sleep.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just wish I would have, I always knew that I got a second wind. I just wish I would have known younger that it's okay. Right. Like, I think night owls are or let's just say, I think late morning sleepers are frowned upon.
Yeah, definitely. And
in society, like if you don't get up early,
my circadian rhythms, like because I used to be a teacher and I used to get up at like 5:30 in the morning and I never adjusted to it.
I was always tired
every single day, and I was still,
even if I went to bed early, I was always still tired. I still yawned all day. I just never, and and people be so chipper in the morning, and I just never got on it. I don't know what that was. And I say to my husband, I'm like, he'll be like, well, you can certainly get up for this flight or whatever. And I'll say, okay, stay up with me till midnight. He's like, I'm not staying up till midnight. And I'm like, exactly. Right. Like, that's nothing for me. It's 2 or 3 in the morning. Right. I have to tell myself to go to sleep if I'm on a roll. But if you're a late morning sleeper, you're kind of lazy. Right. I'm like, no, I'm putting in my full days here. I'm still putting in my full days.
Yeah. And the great thing is that he has never, he may tease me about it sometimes, but he's always been very accommodating and supportive of it. So, and then, when he's falling asleep on the couch at 9:30 p.m., I'm going and picking up my son from robotics, and I'm doing all those things that, he doesn't want to do. So.
Yeah. Your husband got his doctorate, and you guys moved from West Virginia. So you're currently located in Indiana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're both originally from Ohio. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. He grew up in Northern Ohio, close to Akron. And then we met at Wright State in Dayton, Ohio. We met the night before classes started our freshman year and basically dated all through college. And he changed majors at the end of his junior year, so he needed an extra year to finish. But then we got married and moved to West Virginia so he could get his doctorate in economics. And then right out of school, he got hired as a professor at Indiana University. So he's been there 16 years now, and full professor and all of that in one of the it's actually the #1 public finance school in the country.
Oh,
maybe
wow.
I'm not sure.
That's cool. So does he teach and do research?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So professors, it's a very big part. He actually considers the research part much more of what he does.
Yeah. Some teach very little because they're they're teaching in the research, right? Like they have,
Yeah, so
you know,
his like he works with the master's and doctoral students.
okay,
Those are the classes that he teaches. I think we need to wrap it up.
great.
So I
Okay.
actually have a
I
couple
know.
other things to do this afternoon.
I know you do. And I was late. So I just want to thank you. Thank you so much for your time and coming on. I love your designs. I love your branding. I love the care with which you manage your business. And I think that that's just a really neat piece for people to hear about, is kind of some of that behind the scenes, like family and night owls and tech editing and keeping, organization of your year and all of that. So I thank you so much for being willing to share that too, and being open with the people who watch my channel. So thank you so much, Lisa. You're
Well, let me
dear.
say thank you so much, Cori. I really appreciate your friendship and your mentorship. And like, I just absolutely love you. And I love what you're doing with your podcast. You're such a positive, wonderful, just joy to be around. So
I was a little foolish on the hill on Saturday at 1 o'clock when all my pretty boxes sweater shows up. I was like doing a little dance, and I'm a little over the top energy wise anyway, but I was like giddy. I was eking and I was like, oh, I can't. Oh,
yeah.
like, what is this coming out of my body? All right, I'll let you go. Thanks so much. And we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Bye.
Bye.